Hi, everybody. It's meteorologist Joe Chaffee on this Thursday. Thursday's my favorite day of the week because it's the day before Friday. I don't like Fridays very much because what winds up happening is I go to work wishing I'd taken the day off. So I like Thursdays because it's the lead up to it. And welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you are brand new to my YouTube channel, welcome. Participate in the conversation. I get involved myself and, ask me whatever you'd like. And please, if you haven't already, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Just hit the little red subscribe button. It's absolutely free. You'll get notifications when new videos come up. And Google likes me better if you subscribe. So it really helps me out, and I appreciate it very much. And this morning, across my area anyway, we've got high wind warnings up. They were up for most of New Jersey, but they took them down. They're still up for northeastern New Jersey into this afternoon and across Long Island. And there's also even a risk. They put up a fire risk for New Jersey today because of the dry air and the strengthening sun. I thought maybe the ground would be a little bit too wet, but it dries up pretty fast this time of year. The sun can go to work, and all it takes is one spark, and up it goes with these gusty winds. But we've had some gusts of 50 miles an hour or more, and that'll continue for a little while longer. We have a very tight pressure gradient here. You see all these lines, the yellow lines and the green lines here. These are isobars, lines of equal pressure. So what you have is a relatively very large change in pressure between a low to the north, east, and a high to the southwest over a relatively short distance. And that defines the wind. And the tighter the pressure gradient, the stronger the wind is. So we're going to have this wind with us into the early afternoon until it subsides. And then after that, we'll relax it a little bit as we go into the next couple of days. But we've got a very cold air mass coming into the east. I'll just get a little tighter here real fast. You can see some of the gusts that were being reported in the high 30s and low 40s. Some of the network stations in here that are not on the map are reporting gusts even higher than that. And I'll just widen the map out a little bit so you can get a flavor of what's going on around the nation. And those wind barbs are pretty dominant here on the map. Here, at least we go now into the Midwest, and still pretty breezy back over into the Ohio Valley and beyond. All of this part of what is going to be a transient shot of cold air, albeit very cold air, that's going to be coming in for Friday night and Saturday in particular. As there's that wrapped up storm. Here's the high pressure to the west. So there's a big pressure change here, and the distance is relatively short. And the pressure gradient around the low is pretty tight too. So that helps out with the wind. As far as precipitation goes today, there really isn't too much happening other than in the Pacific Northwest and Washington State with a low that's coming in. And here's what happens in the east. There's an upper air disturbance and a little surface trough here that's dropping down that marks the core of the cold air. And that's going to be in place Friday night into Saturday morning. In fact, the coldest air is going to be Saturday morning itself with this high to the north and this north wind. So we're going to see temperatures down in the teens and in some places even the low teens in this neck of the woods here. So it's about the coldest day we've had in well over a month, maybe even longer than that. And that's just been the nature of the pattern we are in. And in the meantime, again, a little action up in the northwest starts to spread some rain and snows down into California as we go over the weekend. And at this point, the high moves offshore. We've got low pressure that's developing in the plains and in the northern Rockies, and then heads into the northern plains and up into central Canada. So this is probably going to set up another situation with a cold front and the chance for some showers, some severe weather and thunderstorms here along about Tuesday. And you can see here's the front. It's pretty strong. I have it drawn a little further, too far to the east, but there is some there are some good dynamics here with this front. Some tropical forcing going on with tropical air trying to get involved, and that probably will trigger off some severe weather again. The severe weather events of the last week have been exceptional for this time of year, and to get them back to back. Although the severe weather did peter out in my neck of the woods yesterday. They had some watches up, and a couple of isolated warnings did occur, but it wasn't any big deal. And then another system the middle of next week comes into the Pacific Northwest, but this one doesn't really drop down too far south. And I'm going to switch off. That's the new GFS that just came in, so I'm going to switch off to the older one, so just to show you what happened. So this front comes through in the east with some rain. I know it shows snow on the backside, but that's usually not the case, especially down here near the coast. And that goes by, and then we get another low moving across the lakes with another cold front, and that has some cold air behind it, but again, nothing exceptional. Now the GFS wants to have a little wave on that boundary going by sometime around day 8, 9, and 10. So that would be March 9th and 10th, actually. And whether that's real or not, the European's not in the same plane with this. So I'm tending to probably discount it to some degree. And it has a series of waves. It's just pretty much the same story. I think these lows that you see here are probably going to wind up being further west and north, because that has been the trend. Having them so far south has not really proved to work out very well. I want to go to the long range a little bit, and I just want to show you, just to show you how this has changed. We look at these teleconnections, which basically, if you're seeing this for the first time, this measures pressure changes in different parts of the world that are important to the weather in the United States. The North Atlantic Oscillation, whenever we refer to blocking, we look at the North Atlantic Oscillation, and when it goes negative, there's some semblance of blocking. When it's strongly negative, there's a lot of blocking. When there's strongly positive, there's no blocking at all. Now, yesterday, the models were forecasting the NAO to go strongly negative for about 2 weeks. And you can see what's happened in 24 hours. It's just flipped completely around. In the meantime, the Eastern Pacific Oscillation, which measures pressure changes up in the Eastern Pacific, is gone in reverse. Yesterday it was positive as far as the eye can see. Now it wants to go to neutral to slightly negative later in the period. When the EPO is negative, it does tend to favor colder air coming into the United States, and most of the time it winds up coming here into the east. But this is the nature of all this tells me that it's going, if that is the case, it's just going to be transient in nature. And of course, the Pacific North America pattern, which when it's positive can pinpoint storminess in the east. This means there's a big ridge up in the western part of the United States and a trough in the east. Well, it's off the wall negative, which tells us that the opposite is going to happen. There'll be a tendency for more ridge in the east and a trough in the west. It does trend up toward the neutral line late in the period, but as long as it's in this negative position, this is not good for any of you that are trying to make a late season snowfall out of this. Not that it can't happen, but in fact, we had one of the snowfalls earlier this year was with a horrible looking PNA that wound up giving some 10-inch plus amounts to the coastal areas. We had a horrible teleconnection pattern. So teleconnections don't always give you the true picture. They give you an idea, but they don't always give you the true picture. And actually, one of the important things is to watch when an index goes from strongly negative and then rapidly goes to neutral, because that's usually a sign of turmoil in the atmosphere and that some kind of storm is going to form somewhere. So, this ascent here from strongly negative to neutral might be indicative of some kind of storminess somewhere. But that's really all you get out of this. When you forecast, you look at a lot of things, and sometimes I think that we look at too much. Because we wind up as forecasters basically, trying to find something that's going to favor our own natural biases. It's just, we're human beings, rumors to the contrary. But sometimes there is such a thing as too much information, and you can overload to the point where you render yourself incapable of making a forecast because you're everything's going in a different direction and you don't know what to key on. So when we look at the upper air, and we will use the GFS first. And here we go. So this is from last night because we have the whole run. And, you can see there where the blocking is over Greenland here. I'm going to just go back a little further. So, you do have higher than normal pressures over Greenland and over the polar regions. But at the same time, here's the impact of that negative PNA. You've got this deep trough in the west, and even with the blocking, you have a ridge in the east. Now, what the blocking does is that it does prevent the ridge from going all the way up. So you don't really get into what we would call a blowtorch pattern where it's, basically 20 degrees or more above normal for 4 or 5 days in a row. So the blocking that's up here prevents that ridge from building all the way up. The trough in the west is fairly deep, but it's going to be a function of the strength of the ridge in the east, and as a result, I mean, it's not as deep as what it could be. So that's what the blocking is, what it's doing here. Normally, blocking up in Greenland would produce a cold, wintry pattern here in the east, but the problem is the west is all wrong. And another problem, by the way, is the fact that you've got the models, particularly the GFS, has been terrible because it keeps signaling that this trough in the west is going to disappear, and it never does. And the ridge in the east still is there. Here it is right here. This is on Monday, March 6th. And by the way, I know because someone pointed this out to me. If I don't mention the date, if you look at the top of the map right here, that'll tell you the date of the map we're looking on. Okay, so here's the today's date, the forecast hour, which is 108 hours into the future, and here's the date that it's valid for. So this particular upper air pattern is valid for Monday, March 6th, 2017. Now, things start moving around, and the GFS again wants to get rid of that trough in the west to some degree and make for a colder look in the east down the road. And you can see it there. There's your Pacific, a little bit of a ridge now builds into the Pacific, and that could be where that signal of the PNA, the Pacific North America pattern, gradually trending toward neutral. It's still not very strong, but it's trending toward neutral because there's less troughing in the west. But you know what? I have my doubts on this, and even so, as we move through the end of the second week, so now we're past St. Patrick's Day. Here we are, once again, that trough near the west, ridge in the middle, a little trough in the east. The block is, there's still a little bit of a little high there that wants to be just to the east of Greenland. Maybe it'll nose back, but this is just a very, nondescript late winter into early spring type setup, at least according to the last model run. Now, I just want to show you, let's go to the European for a moment. All right, so this is the European at 240 hours at day 10, and this is the GFS at, let's switch back. So here's the GFS at 234 from last night. This is the European from 240. Do you see the difference here? How ridiculous it is? The GFS has a totally different look. Okay, it has this part, but it doesn't have this part. So this would be a temporary shot of cold air on the European that may wind up pulling out. You do have this, higher than normal pressures across the poles, but again, the Pacific is a mess. The Pacific is not in a place to make it make for any kind of long, late-term winter weather in the east. It is in a position to continue to bring in weather systems into the western part of the United States, which, after that unrelenting stretch, bit of a break, and I'm not saying it'll get into an unrelenting stretch again, but it looks like there might be more rain events as we move through the month of March, and maybe even a little bit beyond that. The basic overall pattern that we have been in remains virtually unchanged. So, you try and find signs. It's very hard to stay ahead of all this. That's the thing. You get a number of runs in a row that want to show change, and then, when you get very close, here comes reality. So this right now, we're at the end of next week, and you can see there's there's blocking right across the top along the polar regions. But then you have a bit of a trough, you have a low off the Pacific Northwest coast, so that allows for some ridging in the Pacific and some troughing in the east with some colder air. But again, it's not anything that really looks exciting to me. And when we take a look at the GFS surface map, we'll see how much of the new run we have. And the wind is howling outside, by the way. I think I must have just had a gust up into the high 40s, the way, judging from the noise that it's making and the branches, etc., etc. Okay, so we'll go back to this is the new GFS run, which is coming out right now. And all right, so here's that, potential for more severe weather in the Ohio Valley and Tennessee Valley on Tuesday into Wednesday. It moves toward the East Coast. Probably a bigger chance this time around further south than areas up to the north. This looks like a more typical, type of outbreak as opposed to one where we wind up with severe weather up in our neck of the woods here, which is rare. And then here's another low with a cold front that comes through at the end of next week. Again, this is nothing. There are no big storms here other than what looks like a fairly decent storm that comes into the northwest, just north of the Canadian border as we move into late next week. So, that's going to keep California out of it until the trough gets very deep in the west. Most of the rain will stay further north into the Pacific Northwest, as well as the snow. So, I think for the most part, it's just more of the same going forward. I don't see anything that says change to me. When we look at the thermodynamics of the atmosphere, maybe that'll be a good thing to look at this point. So we'll look at the above normal, below normal setup. Again, this is according to the GFS. By the way, the GFS has been horrible with this because of the fact that it, in the longer term, because of the fact that it keeps trying to make things cold and it doesn't happen. So here's the above normal, below normal scheme on the GFS. And I'll take you back to last night's European. So, this is today. We're seeing the last of the above normal temperatures. Now here comes that shot of very cold air for the weekend, and we are much below normal into Sunday, but then we start to moderate. There's that expanding area of above normal pretty much everywhere east of the Rockies, near or below normal for the most part in the west. When that ridge tries to build back in the west, then you start to see that above normal peak out a little bit. And, much of Canada here is below normal as we go into the latter part of next week. I'll back to the 6Z, the prior run, and we'll see what that did. So you can also see the transient nature of whatever little cold shots that do make it into the east just don't stay. They're quickly replaced by above normal temperatures. So, in a scheme like this, you're going to have, lows develop and rounds of severe weather that you're going to have to contend with. And with respect to the European, which is going to have a little bit of a different say in all this because of the fact that it's got the trough positions different, and I think probably more correct, by the way. So here it is today. No argument through the short range. We know it's going to be cold in through Sunday. Then Monday, we go back above average. Get that severe weather, that cold front comes through on late Tuesday night. Shot of cold air that hangs around toward the end of the week, but most of the coldest air stays up in Canada. But here we go on the European. As we go into next weekend, you can see the just about the whole United States, the whole continental United States, except for northern New England and the coast of from Northern California northward, is below average, and Canada for the most part is below average. And then above that, you have this above average scheme, and this is the highs, the higher than normal pressures across the polar regions, the impact of that. So again, you could have all the indices you want. There's two rules that I kind of stick by, is the fact that, all your indices, when we look at the teleconnections, which are here, when we look at these do not point in the direction that you want for wintertime weather, if that's what you're looking for the east, for the northeast in particular. But even if they did, if the troughs and ridges are in the wrong place, it doesn't help you. And in this case, everything is all wrong. So this is the kind of pattern that you wind up getting when everything is not where you would like it to be. So we'll leave it at that. At least we got a quiet couple of days other than the cold. I'm going to burn some firewood. I've got about 5 cords from wood I chopped up 3 years ago that I still have to burn. So I'll get some use out of it tomorrow and Saturday. So try and keep warm if you are in the Northeast into the cold. Oh, and you know what? Let's see how cold the GFS has it, because GFS was pretty cold yesterday with the surface temperatures. Why don't we take a look at that, and then I'll say goodbye. Okay. So let's go to that, and we'll go to the 2-meter temperature, and we'll start with. Okay, so by Friday morning, you can see where the freezing line is in the light blue, a large area of teens and 20s, single digits up in ski country, which, by the way, is going to get a repair job with the cold air that's coming in. Temperatures go nowhere on Friday, and then by Saturday morning, we're down in the teens and low 20s. You can see single digits and even below zero readings well up into upstate New York. The 20s go all the way down into Virginia and North Carolina. Teens down into Pennsylvania and Ohio and then over into the Great Lakes. Temperatures during the day on Saturday, I think, are going to be hard-pressed to get above the freezing mark in the New York City area, at least. And look at this area, not out of the teens and 20s. So this is cold air. You start to get into the low and mid-30s as you get down into the Washington, D.C. area. So imagine the change that we're going from 70s to teens, and then as we move, Sunday morning will be cold, very cold also, teens and down to near 10 in some places, and you see the large area single digits to the north. But we're going to go from 70 to teens, and then by the time we get back to Tuesday, we're back to, well, it has 50s. I'll adventure to say that this will be 60s and probably some 70s getting close again. Although maybe there'll be more rain and clouds to keep the temperatures from going too off the wall. So this is the pattern we're in. This is the pattern we've actually been in pretty much since the winter began, and that just continues as we move forward. All right, have a great day, everybody. Latest website posts on meteorologistjoechaffee.com and also weatherlongisland.com and nycweathernow.com, where my friend Angry Ben. I am Joestradamus, and my friend Angry Ben Scott takes care of NYC Weather Now. And you, of course, can download my weather app and subscribe to my forecast for just 99 cents a month. Specific forecasts for New York, New Jersey, Long Island, Connecticut, Hudson Valley, and eastern Pennsylvania. They are my forecasts. They are not computer model generated. They're brain generated. And I write extensively in there about the local weather conditions for those areas. So if you're interested, just costs you $1 a month, less than my cup of coffee that I'm finishing up now. All right, have a great Thursday, and we'll see you tomorrow with our next weather video.